these apertures to see the world. You're not hiding from the world, you're part of the world. And I thank you for it. Today I'm going to talk about salt. The salty self. Are you salty?
Yes.
Think about that. Are you really salty? How salty are you? How is your salt expressed in your life? And what do you mean by that? What do you mean you're salty? Well, in order to consider that, you need to maybe know what salt is all about. Salt. Salt is a savor that flavors your food. We all know that. It's an essential ingredient in food. It has essential minerals in it. Well, that depends on what you get. If you get the 19 cent a pound Kroger salt, that may not be the best thing for you. But if you get the real salt, sea salt, mined salt, with all the originals, unrefined, that's the salt you want. The real stuff, earthy, good, full. When I was traveling in Persia, I saw the salt flats. Huge expanses. In the summer it's water, in the winter it dries up, and then they go out and collect the salt with all its impurities and all the wonderful minerals in it. That's good for you. Or what about the salt from the ocean that people take in dishes and evaporate it and just take the water out of it, and you're left with real salt, gutsy stuff, full of minerals, sea salt, mined salt, full of minerals, the essence and essentials of life. Salt is used as a preservative. We know about salt meat, salt fish. It's used to cleanse. It's used as an antiseptic. Rub salt in a wound and it'll cleanse it, but oh, does it hurt. You don't want to do that. There are other things that are better, but that does do the job. Now, what you may not be aware of is in the Near East, sometimes they rub salt on a newborn infant, which helps to cleanse the infant. Salt. Salt is incorruptible. It does not spoil. It deters other things from spoiling as well, like in your salt fish. Cross-culturally, it is used for purification. It's associated with peace, domestic harmony, sanctity of shared tables. It symbolizes the renewal of one's relationship with God. You may have heard of the bread and salt agreement. It's a symbol of hospitality, friendship. This is true of all nations in all time. Salt has durability, fidelity, mutual respect between guest and host. Those who had salted and shared together should not harm one another. When people speak of salt, that symbolizes not just salt, but the entire meal. When you share salt together, you share a meal together. Salt is considered sacred. It is a token of loyalty and true friendship. When covenants are made, it is sealed by breaking bread and eating salt together. To eat bread and salt together is an expression of mutual trust. In the East, Arabs put salt on the blade of a sword when they're making a covenant, an agreement. And each person who is part of that covenant or agreement takes a little bit of that salt and eats it. They have all shared salt. It is a covenant of alliance. It is bound then by a sacred obligation. Salt is so important, and always has been, that in ancient times soldiers were paid with salt. The root of salary is the Latin word sol, which means salt. Soldiers were paid with salt, just like they were paid with gold and silver. It's a method of equalization. This is tied to the expression, he is worth his salt. Not all salt is the same, as we know. I've explained that good salt is from the earth, from the ocean, the real stuff. Are you worth your salt? Now we also know that there's something like salty language. And I'm not sure how to explain that in a church environment. Maybe I should say salty language is what is not allowed on television and radio.
Mm-hmm.
Or the words that would make a sailor blush. Sentences filled with a lot of flavor, salty language. To salt also means to sprinkle. Now, today is the 500th anniversary of Martin Luther pinning his theses on the church door. So this is the 500th anniversary of the beginning of Protestantism. Hallelujah. Now, he salted the world with his concepts. He printed one page and posted it. But because the printing press was fairly new, they were able to take those theses and reproduce them, send them out, and very quickly they had salted entire areas, so these new concepts were being looked at and accepted in a lot of places almost simultaneously. He salted new ideas into the world. What do you salt to the people you have interactions with? Jesus said, "Ye are the salt of the earth," an essential element. Ye have great worth. Well, what does this mean and why? These are examples of Jesus' followers following Jesus. Now, had you not just heard a little history of salt, when you hear ye are the salt of the earth, it doesn't mean very much until you understand what salt really meant at that time, in that period. When Jesus was giving out his ideas and that were being accepted by his followers were expected to go out and salt environments with these ideas as well, to spread them, to sprinkle them. A little bit of salt goes a long ways. When you are having a meal, you don't use lots of salt. You sprinkle carefully. But each grain of salt makes a difference in the way you taste your food, in every idea of truth that you sprinkle into environments that you inhabit salts their minds with truth. Ye are sowers of seeds of truth wherever you go. It's like dropping that pebble into a placid pond, and you see these great waves, and each wave that goes out a little further has a smaller impact, but its main effect is right at the beginning. So you are commissioned to salt the environments that you inhabit with seeds of truth. Jesus also said, "Ye are the light of the world." Light is enlightenment. Light is illumination. Fulfillment as expressions of Godness in the earth plane. You are an expression of God. Each of us is a spark of God from everlasting to everlasting. We express Godness in our lives. We express Godness wherever we go. These are the seeds we are salting everywhere. We express the kingdom of heaven wherever we go. Today is the first Sunday of Advent. Advent has 4 Sundays. That's a 4-footed foundation. Faith, love, peace, and joy. And those are the elements of the kingdom of heaven that you are salting and spreading and infecting everyone with. You are part of the developing and expressing of the kingdom of heaven here in the earth plane. As it is expressed in Matthew, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under a bushel, but on a lampstand, and gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. This is your commandment, to let your light shine, and you are the salt of the earth. You are spreading the ideas of the kingdom of heaven. As we look around us and observe the surrounding world with human eyes, we may not see the kingdom of heaven being expressed. Imelda Shanklin, one of the great writers in unity, gave an important prayer test. She says, in effect, Father, forgive me for expecting in the human that which is found only in the divine. When I look at you as a human being with human eyes, I have to be careful. I want to see you, not with my human eyes, but with my God eyes, to see the Christness radiating in you, to see the Godness manifesting in and through you. We remember Mother Teresa working with the people in the streets of India. And people said, how can you do this day after day? And she said, when I look into their eyes, I see the eyes of Christ. She saw the betterment, not the worse. Notice, forgive me, for I have sinned by expecting the human of the person, something that can be found only in the Christ within that individual. I must take responsibility for my attitude. If we relate to others only on a purely human level, there is bound to be an unconscious expectation of human limitations. Our view will be prejudiced. Sometimes we might say, oh, I'm looking at that person. What more can I expect of that person? I know who he is or she is. That's not the way to see a person. That's only what you can expect of that character. No, no, no. The sin is really in the eye of the beholder. The forgiveness must come through understanding, not something right. You don't set something right. It is your obligation to see it rightly. This is something Eric Butterworth expressed many times in many ways. He said, our job is not to set things right, but to see them rightly. This means to see them with God eyes, not with human eyes. If I look at someone as they are, I'm limiting that person because I say, okay, this is what I see, this is all I can expect. But if I look at someone with Christ eyes, I see their potential. I see them bigger and better than what they are. This gives them a new potential in their life to grow into their Christness more fully, to express the kingdom of heaven in their lives more fully. Many of us, when we were children, were asked by some adult, and what do you expect to be when you grow up? And there we were as kids. How can I know what I'm going to be when I grow up? But this is really the opportunity that they were giving us to create a life beyond our expectations. Dream that dream of what I can be and become that. Because we create the person we find ourselves to be. If you don't like who you are, change your mind and recreate yourself. We all know many people who have recreated themselves. I have watched successful people recreate themselves over and over as they mature in life. We have an occupation. We move beyond that into something else and keep on going. I remember a number of years ago, when, what's her name? Who's the redheaded actress?
Catherine.
About 80.
Catherine Hepburn? Oh, Lucille Ball?
Is she alive?
She's still alive.
Lucille Ball?
No.
Give us a hint.
Redhead, comic. Carol Burnett, thank you. It's my unwritten notes that I forgot to put in here. I remember a number of years ago when Carol Burnett had a daughter who was in college. And Carol Burnett's around 80-ish, give or take a little. And her daughter wanted to become a nurse. And she looked at her and said, "Do you really want to become a nurse, or would you rather become a doctor?" I mean, this is what we do as adults when we are trying to expand the mind of someone. Don't limit them. Give them greater opportunities to grow. And this is what she was doing. Rise up and see and do not see as humans see, but see as God sees, as Jesus sees. Because we are in a breakthrough now from humanness to godness. I remember when Eric Butterworth said, fundamentalists believe that Jesus was God becoming man. But I believe that Jesus was man becoming God. If we look at the great breakthroughs in history, moving from a wandering society to an agricultural society, an agrarian, and keeping moving, we've gone through the technological, we've gone through manufacturing, now we're in the technological, we're in a whole new era now. I mean, today, 50 years ago, we never, ever would have dreamed where we would be today, electronically. We see these breakthroughs periodically in the human development. We are now on the cusp of becoming godlike. We know that we create as God creates, and God created. But remember, God is not that gray-bearded man sitting on a cloud up there that's a combination puppeteer and judge. God is the essence of who and what we are. God, the God concept, has created from time immemorial. We are that godness in our life. We create our life, we create society, we create the world. We have to envision how we want the world to be, and that is what we create with our lives. This little element that we salt wherever we go is the essence of what is becoming. We don't salt yesterday, we salt tomorrow. No matter how bleak it may look out there, it is our obligation to seed something that will grow beyond what is expected into what could become. There is hope. And as we enter this season of Advent with hope, which is the same as faith, I mean, the first Sunday is always hope and faith, and it's blended. Sometimes one word is used, sometimes the other. And then love and peace. And then we end with joy, because joy shows the fulfillment of the kingdom of heaven. Just as faith and hope begin it. And in the middle we have love and peace, which is what we all want, love and peace. And then we have joy at the end. Jesus was teaching that people of Israel of that time were the precious salt of the earth, which was needed to savor the nations of the earth, which have always been in a warring period. You can almost never find a period when there was no war going on. There's always something. Cold War, hot war, nation against nation, people against people. Jesus was teaching that his followers were the salt that was to flavor the period to come with peace and love. It takes very little salt to make a difference in the flavor of food. Just like Luther made one posting, and look what has happened in 500 years. It has salted the earth with new concepts, but new thought, which is only 120, 30 years old, and Unity is a member of this group of new thought denominations. We have salted the earth, salted religion, salted churches and other groups with new concepts developed out of the transcendental period of the early 1800s. We have salted the earth in the last 130 years the way Luther salted the earth 500 years ago. We, you and me, are the salt today to seed the seeds of truth, the thoughts of truth, wherever we go, in all that we do, with whomever we interact with. It is our duty, it is our obligation, it is our godness being manifested in the earth plane. We are commanded to be examples of living the kingdom of heaven, here and now, in the earth plane. Regardless of what we see out there, regardless of the conditions in the world, we are commanded to do so. My truth is that I sow seeds of truth to grow in the minds of all with whom I have contact, so the kingdom of heaven will become manifest in the earth plane, here and now. Jesus' new commandment to his followers was, love one another as I have loved you. Love one another as I have loved you. Love is the foundation of the kingdom of heaven. Go forth and love. Love. Love.